The evolution of power, a calculated ascent through the Mafia hierarchy. Level 1, the associate. The world of men is governed by a singular, unspoken truth: power is never given, it is only taken. To enter the life of the Mafia is to step out of the light of the law and into the cold clarity of a predator's reality. You begin your journey as an associate, a ghost in the machinery of the underworld with no status and no safety net. At this level, you are nothing more than a tool, a disposable asset whose only value is your utility to the men who actually own the streets. You are a merchant of service, surviving on the scraps of their ambition while proving you have the stomach for the work. The associate lives in a state of perpetual audition, knowing that one mistake does not lead to a reprimand, but to an unmarked grave. You have no rights, no protection, and no voice in the rooms where decisions are made. Your life is a high-stakes gamble where the only way to win is to prove you are indispensable. Level 2, the soldier. The transition from associate to the rank of soldier is not a promotion, it is a rebirth. When the books are finally opened and you are invited to the secret ceremony, you leave your biological identity behind to become a made man. You are introduced to the inner circle, your finger is pricked to draw blood, and the card of a saint is burned in your palms as you take the oath. As the ash falls, you are reborn as a protected entity within the family, a brother among wolves. This is your first taste of true power, where your word carries the weight of a centuries-old organization. Yet, this protection is a gilded cage, for you are now a soldier, bound by a vow of omerta that ends only when your heart stops beating. Your life is now defined by two cold metrics: earning and executing. You are the front line of the economic matrix, managing the gambling and the quiet coercion that ensures the neighborhood remains compliant. You learn the cold art of the sit-down, where words are chosen with the precision of a surgeon's blade, because a single misplaced syllable can trigger a war that consumes dozens. Level 3, the Capot regime. To remain a soldier is to live in a state of high-functioning paranoia, but to ascend to the rank of Capot regime is to become a master of human chess. As a captain, you are granted a territory, a crew of soldiers, and the heavy responsibility of sustaining the family's treasury through cold, calculated strategy. You are the buffer between the street and the administration, a filter through which only the most refined intelligence and the purest prophets must pass. At this level, you no longer soil your hands with the mundane chores of violence, you simply provide the climate in which violence becomes inevitable for others. Your success as a capo depends entirely on your ability to balance the egos of your subordinates with the insatiable demands of your superiors. You must rule your crew with a calculated blend of fatherly mentorship and the cold, unblinking eyes of a judge who has already signed the death warrant. Every week, you must kick up a percentage of your earnings to the administration, a tribute that acknowledges the hierarchy and secures your continued existence. Level 4, the underboss. Above the Capot regime sits the underboss, the prince of the underworld and the operational architect of the family's grand strategy. At this altitude, the air becomes thin and the stakes become absolute, for you are the chief of staff who handles the internal affairs so the boss can remain insulated from the grime of the street. You are the shadow that moves behind the throne, ensuring that orders are executed with surgical efficiency while shielding the administration from the prying eyes of federal surveillance. Your role is one of constant mediation and silent observation, acting as the only individual with the authority to bypass captains and speak directly to the soldiers when a crisis demands it. You are the heir apparent, the man next in line for the crown, which makes you both the most trusted ally and the most dangerous potential rival to the man you serve. To be an underboss is to live with the knowledge that you are the primary target for both the law and the ambitious, requiring a mind like a steel trap to remember every favor owed and every slight endured. Level 5, the consigliere. Parallel to the executive line of command exists a position of unique, ghostly influence, the consigliere. You are the only member of the hierarchy who does not command a crew, yet your voice carries the weight of 100 guns. As the counselor, you are the voice of reason in a kingdom of ego, the philosopher of the underworld who whispers truth into the ear of the king. You are often a man of intellect rather than brawn, a legal and strategic mind who understands that the greatest victories are won through a signature on a contract rather than a bullet in the dark. Your loyalty is not to a person, but to the institution itself. While the underboss manages the soldiers, you manage the boss's conscience. When the fires of pride threaten to burn down the family's foundations, it is your hand that must douse the flames. You are the architect of the family's legitimate fronts, moving millions through offshore accounts with the grace of a ghost, ensuring the bloodline of power remains unbroken through the decades. Level 6, the boss. At the apex of the pyramid stands the boss, the Don, the ultimate arbiter of life and death. You are the sovereign of a hidden empire, an individual who has transcended the petty labels of criminal to become a historical force. From this height, the world looks different. You no longer see individuals, you see assets, liabilities, and vectors of influence. Being the boss is an exercise in absolute, crushing isolation. You are the only person in the organization who cannot afford the luxury of a friend, for every smile directed toward you is a potential mask for envy. You operate through layers of insulation, speaking in riddles and metaphors so that no direct order can ever be traced back to your lips. Your power is not based on the gun, but on the belief that you are inevitable, a force of nature that cannot be bargained with or escaped. You maintain the commission, the supreme council of the families, where you engage in a delicate dance of diplomacy with your equals to ensure that the collective interest of the syndicate outweighs the ego of any single man. Level 7, the boss of all bosses. Beyond the borders of a single family lies the mythic and dangerous title of the Capo di Tutti Capi, the boss of all bosses. To hold this position is to occupy a throne made of glass and bayonets, where you act as the ultimate chairman of the national criminal conglomerate. You are no longer merely a leader of men, you are the guardian of the entire underworld's equilibrium. At this level, your primary objective is the suppression of war, for conflict brings the heat of the state and the disruption of profit. You possess the authority to settle disputes between warring families, acting as a supreme court whose verdict is final and whose enforcement is absolute. However, this rank is often a target rather than a refuge. History has shown that the man who claims total lordship over the 5 families often finds himself the victim of a collective strike, as no king can survive when his subjects decide that equality is more profitable than submission. Level 8, the Commission. If the boss of all bosses is the king, then the Commission is the Parliament of the Shadows. This is the highest level of the economic matrix, a secret governing body composed of the heads of the most powerful families in the nation. Here, the raw violence of the street is replaced by the cold diplomacy of the boardroom. The Commission serves as the supreme regulator of the underworld, allocating territories, approving the induction of new members, and authorizing the execution of high-ranking bosses when they become a liability to the whole. As a member of this council, you are an architect of a hidden civilization. You decide the direction of global narcotics, the infiltration of international unions, and the manipulation of the stock markets. You are the invisible hand that guides the chaos, ensuring that the syndicate operates with the efficiency of a sovereign nation. To sit at this table is to reach the final plateau of power, where your decisions ripple through the legitimate and illegitimate worlds alike, proving that the ultimate form of control is not the bullet, it is the consensus. Level 9, the shadow political asset. At this stage of the hierarchy, the boundaries between the underworld and the upper world dissolve entirely. You are no longer a criminal in the traditional sense, you have become a shadow political asset. Your influence is felt in the halls of governance, where you trade in the most valuable currency of all, information and leverage. You do not bribe officials with envelopes of cash, you provide the silent funding for their campaigns and the logistical muscle to sway elections. At this level, you are a ghost in the machine of democracy, ensuring that the laws written by the state never impede the progress of the family. You are the silent partner in massive infrastructure projects and the hidden hand behind labor unions that can paralyze a city with a single phone call. You have moved beyond the reach of the local police and into the realm of geopolitical chess, where you are a necessary evil that the state occasionally employs to handle the problems that the law is too righteous to touch. Level 10, the Legacy Architect. The final and most elusive rank is that of the Legacy Architect, the man who successfully transitions the family's bloodline from the shadows into the blinding light of legitimacy. You are the elder statesman who has survived the purges, the indictments, and the betrayals to see your descendants occupy the boardrooms of the Fortune 500 and the seats of the Senate. Your task is the most difficult of all, the total erasure of the family's criminal origins. You oversee the massive philanthropic foundations and the endowment of universities, using your vast, ill-gotten wealth to buy a clean history for the generations to follow. To be a legacy architect is to play the longest game of all, ensuring that while the world remembers the myth of the Mafia, they forget the names of the men you had to bury to build your empire. You are the ultimate victor of the Machiavellian path, having used the darkness to secure a permanent place in the sun, proving that if you hold power long enough, it eventually becomes indistinguishable from virtue. Level 11, the Ghost of the Machine. The journey through the ranks of the Mafia concludes not with a celebration, but with a cold realization of the cost of the crown. You have reached the final plateau where you are no longer a man, but a ghost of the machine. Your presence is felt in every transaction and every fear, yet you have effectively ceased to exist as a human being. To have climbed from the desperation of an associate to the absolute authority of the upper echelons is to have traded your soul for a seat at a table of shadows. This hierarchy is a closed loop, a predatory ecosystem where the only true exit strategies are the steel bars of a life sentence or the cold ritual of a funeral with high honors. You have achieved the American dream through a nightmare of your own design, proving that in the pursuit of total dominance, the winner is often the one who loses the most of himself. Level 12, the Eternal Cycle. As the curtain falls, we witness the eternal cycle of power, the ultimate truth of the underworld. The legacy of a life lived in the shadows is written in the silence of those who remain and the hunger of those who are just beginning. You look back at the trail of broken alliances and the soldiers you sacrificed for the sake of the board, only to realize the machine functions perfectly whether you are at the helm or in the ground. The Mafia is not about the glamour of the suit or the weight of the gold, it is about the terrifying efficiency of the human will when it is stripped of its moral compass. It is a testament to the fact that order can be born from chaos, and that even in the darkest corners of society, there is a logic and a price that must be paid in full. You have seen the ranks, you have understood the levels, and now you know the final secret: the true cost of being a king is the eternal burden of the crown.